What's up, clean freaks? It's Hank Balch here. Thank you for tuning in to this brand new Now You Know series. H20 Now You Know is what we're calling this. All about water quality in the sterile processing space. And have we got a subject matter expert for you? Christian Abell is going to be joining us as the insightful thought leader for this series. We're going to be picking Christian's brain here on all things water. It's a little mini series. We're not going to cover everything there is to say or to know about water, but hopefully we're going to get you thinking out there and get you equipped with the kinds of questions maybe to ask your facilities, your biomed, your water partners, your consultants, or just inspire your staff to learn more about this topic. So Christian, welcome to the series, and give us a little background about who you are.
Thank you. So I do come from a very clinical background. I spent 19 years in the peri-op area as a surgical tech, assist, and also managing and directing SPDs. So 19 years. Prior to that, I studied business at Virginia Tech. How I ended up here, don't know. But it was a very natural progression for me.
Yeah, that's a lot of our stories. It's hard to explain exactly how we ended up in SPD, but we get here and then we stay. So that's the most important part. So what about water in particular kind of caught your attention in your career? There's a lot of things that you could focus on and really dive into, but what about water has kind of kept your attention?
I think really it's the deep science of actually how to address situations and issues. As a manager and director, chasing down problems and getting water reports and looking at other various functions of machinery and equipment, it just was a continual, I always had this need to want to know. And even when guys came to fix cart washers, I was sitting there on a bucket with them, like, why are you doing that? Where tell me about how this works. And I just had this quest, insatiable quest for information, and running into problems of my own. The more I learned, the more I talked to different experts, the more I realized there's a completely unknown aspect and component of this business that's largely untapped. And I think that's kind of why I ended up where I am right now. And just the continuing learning of some of, the things that go well beyond what, ST108 is going to provide us, and the unknown sciences of being able to piece problems together for customers that, hey, you're meeting all the standards, that's great, but you have a problem. And how do we fix it? How do we address it?
Tess, so you alluded to ST108, and we're going to have a whole episode here later in the series to kind of dive into ST108. But for those who maybe this is their first introduction to anything water in sterile processing, besides they're using it every day at the sink side and in the washers, what is ST108 kind of high level? And then we'll jump into the details later on.
So there's a lot of other documents around the world that are really good and important, EN 285 and their ISO, standards, but ST108 is relative to the United States. And what, I guess at a high level, it's more providing you some guidelines and general standards that will help you understand what you're looking for in terms of water quality, water equipment, how to maintain it, how to monitor it, how to select it. And I think that's the general concept and idea that, obviously we have to wait for the final release.
Right.
Looking at endotoxins, bacteria, all that type of stuff. How do we do it? How often? Who monitors it? All that type of general information. What it doesn't do is help you with, hey, I have rust and corrosion. I'm meeting the numbers. Now what?
Right.
Yeah.
So that's a good call out. At the time of this recording, it has not been published yet, but I was not exactly sure when this document's coming out. It's kind of a big conversation across our industry of, hey, is it coming out next week? Is it coming out 3 months from now? So depending on when it is you're watching this series, it may be out, or we may still be waiting on it. Just FYI on that piece. So that's great. Yeah. So, taking a step back, I know we kind of went we went the route of the guidelines, but let's just take a step back on a high level and say, water quality in medical device reprocessing. Why is it such a big deal? Like you kind of told your story about getting into the industry, getting interested because you saw some repairs going on. Like you knew there's some um, important thing going on with the water, but what's the big deal with water? Maybe let me ask it that way.
Well, water is the center hub of a lot of what we do in SPD, but that unfortunately is not the central life necessarily of an instrument or a particular material. So, material referencing like stainless steel, anodized aluminum, thermoplastics, that type of stuff. It's the center hub. It's vital. It's important, but everything stems from that quality, how it interacts and reacts to different environments. And a lot of times I think we get very focused on the water quality, saying we have like this perfect pharmaceutical grade rinse water and we have a horrible corrosion problem. So what is that? What's going on here? I think that's the vital importance of understanding that water at every given point during a cycle, how it reacts. And I'm sure we'll probably go into that here, moving forward with some of the questions and ideas. In any given environment, you have opportunities for that water to react in different ways, in different aspects.
So if you're a clinician, I think it can be easy to forget how many times you interact with water in your typical workflow. So maybe like walk us through instruments, maybe let's start in the OR. They're being used in the OR. Any chance that they're interacting with water in the operating room?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
That's where it starts. You have, ambient moisture in the air, first of all. You have water, saline, pharmaceuticals, other various chemicals in that environment, not to mention the human body that it's going in.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
There's a lot of, mostly water in one way or another in other forms, right. But the interaction and exposure, time, temperature, and all that stuff starts there. You have what happens after use at the OR side. So you may rinse it off, you might wipe it off, you might spray it with a surfactant, and now you have the surfactant mixed with everything else it was exposed to. How long does it sit? It gets in the SPD, sits there again potentially at times. May have a sink water quality or a sonic water quality. It just is continual. And then when you get into the washer, that was where you get to the more complicated water in chemistry, because you're adding heat, and heat has a lot of impact on how water reacts and what's in it. And then it comes out, it's presumably dry, and then it sits on the shelf for a while with either some retained moisture or ambient moisture in the air. And then it gets sterilized and steam. So another, it's a form of water. It's a gas, but it's nonetheless water. And then the drying aspects and how long it sits on a shelf in that environment, and depending on what's retained or carried over from this process, can sit there and have corrosion effects. So the instrument goes through a brutal life. It's not just about water as the center hub of all of it and how it reacts, like I said, in those given environments, but there's a combination of a lot that an instrument will go through and expose to.
Yeah, even on the storage standpoint, we put a lot of focus on monitoring like temperature and humidity, right? Well, humidity of we're referencing water there, and we don't want the moisture in the storage area to be too high, relative to what's going on in those packaging systems. So yeah, it's literally everywhere at every stage of the sterile processing workflow. No surprise that there's so much conversation out there and that we have new standards coming into the space today. So let's wrap up here for episode 1. I think this is a great intro, and I want to kick off episode 2 talking about the poor consequences, maybe some of those high level, what happens in each one of these stages when we're getting water wrong. And we'll start there. But before we wrap, I want to tell everyone who's tuning in, thank you for your time. Hope you enjoyed this intro so far. And if you've got any questions for Christian about water or anything that you're experiencing in your department, we're going to have his contact info in the video description below. So make sure to reach out to him and make sure to subscribe to the channel to catch all the future series of this H2O Now You Know series. Up for now, we're going to wrap episode 1 and tell you, like we say all the time at Beyond Clean, keep fighting dirt.